Here is Lesson 7 review. We're going to call this Lesson 7P, and I've created this as a demo review. So basically, for my students, you're going to download the starting file from our Bellringers file. So you're going to grab this file here in Repl, rename it, so save it into your own Repl, and you're going to try to create this page. Now, I'm going to try to walk you through this. And the intention is for you to pause me. So you're going to be pausing over and over and over again to try to do what I say before I do it. That way you can check your work. And if you don't know how to do it, you could try it, fail if you need to, and then move on with me. So here is the demo. We are creating this page. Here it is in full screen just so you can kind of get an idea of what we are doing. Notice that there are a few things that are a little bit difficult to see on your Bellringers page, like for instance the fact that HR is a double line and the lines on the pictures are also double lines. But if you'll take a look here, you can definitely see that we have double borders on those. So that's just one thing to note. Also, the circular photo, this black and white photo, should never hang out of the box. So when we get to a smaller viewport like this, notice that it fits in the box but never hangs out of the box. It'll get smaller as our page gets smaller. So that's one other thing that you can't see. And then one bonus piece of information, which I will add on the Bellringers, is the code that we're going to use for the shade of red. I'm going to put that in here now. And that's going to be FE00000. And that's that shade of red that you're going to see on the HR and the shading and so forth. Okay, so let's begin. Let's start off by taking a look at this page. Whenever we run it in Repl, it looks like this. So we have a pretty plain page. The very first thing we're going to do is set this up so that the entire page is in a box. Now I've done you a favor here. Partially, I have gone ahead and put div around the header, this section, and way down here, the footer. So there is a div there. It is an unnamed div. So you're going to come over here and look in the style and then pause me and go add this in. All right, hopefully you've done that at this point. This is going to be called ID equals the box. That is what that is named already here in the CSS. And next we're going to style this box. So let's take a look at it carefully. Notice it does not go all the way to the margins, so it is not all the way across. It is in the center of the page. And the div box itself does have a color to it. So at this time, make those 3 changes to your div box. All right, so we should have added in a couple of things. We're going to start off with making the box have the width, and that'll be whatever it is. I'm going to say 80%. If we run it, then now it doesn't go all the way across. To center it, we're going to set the margin to 0 auto. That's going to give us a nice little center here. All right, now it's centered on the page. Now without our picture background, we can't really tell what color this is, but I am going to go ahead and put that in there. So let's go ahead and add our background image to the body. You're going to look in your images folder and find out what that image is called. So as we look through here, we can see it is this one. So take a pause and go ahead and insert this image. All right, so what you should have done is inserted that image here and the body. That's going to be background image, URL, and then inside the parentheses, the path, which is images, / and the name of the picture, which is vb.png. If we run that, then we should very quickly see that our box does not have a color. So that makes it much more obvious that our box should have a background color of white. All right, that gets us that. Let's take one more look. Notice our box also has a border around the edge of it. So if you have not already, you're going to want to add that border. Before you do, and before you pause me, remember a border has 3 parts. All right, and what are those three parts? Well, it's a black border, it's a solid border, and it's a thin border, or you could have given a pixel number of 1 or 2 pixels, whatever you like there for the edges. All right, so now we kind of have that main setup all ready to go. And now we can start breaking this down into component parts. I like to look at kind of the big things first. Let's go ahead and style the HR. As I've said before, the HR is a double HR. It does not span all the way across, and it is in color. So at this time, you're going to style your HR. Again, pause me and come right on back. Okay, I've already got a place in here for the HR. As you know, we want to remove all borders from the HR, so we're going to set it to border of none and then set a border to only one side. I'm going to do border top. That red color that we're going to use, remember I've given you a hexadecimal code. It's FE0000. It has to be zeros because remember, O's are not part of our hexadecimal code system. It's going to be a thick border, or you could put like 5 pixels or something like that. It's also going to be a double border, as we indicated earlier on. Now that's going to put our border in there, but it's going to go all the way across. It should not do that. So we'll put in a width. You'll have to just kind of play with it. It's 75% or so. And there we go. 80% seems to work just fine. So now we've got our HR in there. All right, looking good. Let's go ahead and take a look at the header and the footer. They have a couple things in common. You'll notice that they are both in a specific color with a specific alignment. So at this time, you're going to want to go ahead and set those things for header footer, which are already pre-styled in the CSS. All right, you should have text aligned center, your header and footer. They both have a background color. Again, I've given you that shade that we're using throughout here. It should pop up, just press tab for the background color. If we do that, that's all good. However, our color of our words is incorrect. So then we're going to have to give that a regular color of white. All right, that takes care of the header and the footer. I've done some additional things to remove the spacing. If you get to this, it'll be towards the end of the video, and I'll show you how you can fix that. All right, so far we've got the box. We've got our body image set. We've got our header and footer set. We've got our HR set. Let's go ahead then and move on to the fun words that are up here in the header box. If we take a look at them in the volleyball page, you can see the letters are spaced. There is a faint shadow, a blurry faint shadow in there. Also, they are in italics if you look very carefully. So to do this, we are not styling this entire heading. We're not styling the entire header box because both of these are not in that shade, and this little star is also not in that shade. So we're going to have to apply this to an area of letters. I want you to think through this one as to, number one, how do we do that? And number two, we're going to have to create a class for it. Now I've again preset this class in here. We're going to call it Fun Words. So I want you to go ahead and style those fun words to appear like this, and then apply that to just the words fun, 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 and the exclamation mark. Then come on back. All right, so what you should have done for fun words is we need a text shadow. Text shadow has several parts to it. Remember, there are the X and Y offset, then the blur value, and then the color. The words are also italic. You should recall that's font style. And then the letters are spaced. And I'm going to go 5 pixels here. If we run, nothing will happen because we haven't told it to do it to the words fun, fun, fun. To do that, we're going to use, I hope you figured it out, a span. That's something that we can attach the class to. Now, I presume some of you might have gotten fancy and just created an inline style with an EM tag. You could have attached that to the EM tag, but it's really more efficient to create the class. I already forgot what it was called. Fun Words, I think. Fun Words. And then we'll turn that off prior to the H2 being turned off because we don't want to mess up our nesting. All right, there we go. Excellent. Now we've got that in there. Okay, continuing on. Let's take a look here at what's next. Next up, we want to, let's go ahead and put in this picture here. So this picture is to the right of this paragraph. You can tell that because it's lined up with the top of this paragraph. If it was lined up with the top of the words the invention, you would insert this picture right in front of this T. But since it's lined up with the top of this line, we're going to insert it right in front of this T. So at this time, I want to have you to insert the image, set the image so that it text wraps. We want the image to be over there. And then create a class to apply to the image. I'm going to go ahead and tell you to name this class a certain thing. We're going to go ahead and name it BW Round because it's black and white and it's rounded. Okay, so give it a pause, come on back, and let's see if you got that in there properly. All right, so here we go. I'm going to insert mine in. Again, in front of the T in the year 1985, right here is where that image needs to go. I'm going to put the image source, img space src equals path to the image, images slash pass. It's pass 1. I have the wrong one in there on this one. Alt equals, and then passing photo. And then next, we're going to style it inline to float to the right. That's going to make it float. Now, mine is going to be a hot mess because I have the wrong one in there, and it's not actually in the document. So let me go ahead and drag this in here. Hopefully, I didn't forget to put that in for yours. I really thought I did. But anyway, okay. So now I've got it. Let's see if we run that again, if we have a picture. All right, so there it is. There's my picture. I don't want the picture to ever pop out of the box, as I mentioned earlier on. So we're also going to set this to have a max width of 100%. So it never gets bigger than its normal size, but it also can't fall out of the box. All right, there we go. Now it fits. Finally, I need to style the BW round. To round it, that should be border radius. And then a certain number. We usually do about 50% for a circle. And then black and white is going to be a filter. It's grayscale, and remember, it's GRAY. It's on a scale of 0 to 1. 1 would be entirely grayscale. Or you can do 0% to 100%. And then, of course, you must apply this class. So after the quotation marks here, class equals BW round. I'm going to run this. All right, excellent. That looks right, but let's go ahead and open it out here so we can see. Yes, so this is good. One thing, though, is it is dipping down into all of this stuff. If you look at my example, that's not happening. This line happens after the picture, which means we have to do something to this paragraph. Think for a moment and see if you can recall what we need to do to that paragraph. We're going to use an inline style to tail that paragraph. Hey, wait until after the picture to appear. Okay, I'm going to do it. I hope you did it already. So I'm going to come down here to that paragraph, and I'm going to set a inline style to clear both. Clearing means clear the picture before you put in the paragraph. There we go. And that scoots it down. All right. Fine and dandy there. We've got our BW round in there. We've got our picture in there. Next up, let's deal with the bulleted list. So as we look at this bulleted list, we are going to add these beautiful little bullets. Look at my cute little animated bullets. We're also going to be shading this list to be yellow. And then notice that you'll see a little bit of white space on the left and right. So I want you to look carefully at that. Go ahead and pause me and try that out. See if you can add in your bullets and if you can make it look like this. Then come on back and take a look and see what I've got for you here. All right, so styling the list. It's going to be the UL. I'm going to actually put it up here above my classes. Or you could have created a class and applied it to the UL. So it's list style image colon URL in parentheses images space or slash and then whatever the name of that is. I think it's rock. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and pop that in there. rock.gif. And then the background color is yellow. Let's just go ahead and take a look at it at this point and see what it looks like. And run. And refresh. All right, so notice that did work. However, this goes margin to margin, and in the example, we have a gap on both sides. So what we're basically going to do is make a change to the margin of the box. Okay, so the box that holds the list is the UL. So we're just going to modify this in here, and we can do margin. Auto would set stuff to auto, which would center if it was not over all the way through on the width. So instead of modifying that and having to do two things, we'll just set a margin left and a margin right to a certain number. So margin left, let's say 20 pixels. Margin right, 20 pixels. As long as you're consistent, it'll look centered. Here we go. And bam, there we go. So this does kind of the same thing as doing a width and then setting margin to auto for left and auto for right. But that's going to give you that same kind of look. All right. Moving on here. We've got one more thing I think to add, and then maybe some modifications on some spacing, and that is the figure. So there is a set of two pictures that we need to add in here. So we've got all the rest of this stuff. At this point, we've got these two pictures. Notice they are side-by-side images. Below them is some text, so that's going to tell you that that is a caption. So instead of putting these pictures in a paragraph, we're going to put them in something that allows us to use a caption. Also, just to make things even more complicated, I've given you some pictures that have a double border and a shadow. That's not going to be added to anything other than the pictures themselves. That would be something that you would create a class for. But we're going to put them inside something, add this in there, and then later on make those things styled. This is all going to be centered inside the not paragraph that you're putting these in. But you may want to give it a width and then center the thing that's not a paragraph that they're in as well. So anyway, give it a pause, see if you can figure that out. Come on back and I'll walk you through what to do. Okay, so this next one is going to be a figure tag. So instead of a paragraph, when we insert these images, we're going to insert them inside of a figure tag. For this figure, we are going to set it to text align center. That's so that the caption will also center. I'm going to go ahead and style my caption. And if you look at the example, the caption is italics and it's in a smaller font. Okay, and then you would also probably typically go ahead and size down the width of the box, but you're not probably going to have to do that on this one because these are going to be the only things in the box. Okay, so I've got that styled at this point. Now let's go ahead and insert these in here. So the picture's going to go, let's look at the example, right above the footer. So it's the last thing in this section. So we'll come down in here. Again, instead of a paragraph, we're going to use a figure tag. And why? Because it has a caption. So we're going to insert each of our images, img space, src equals, images space, or slash. The first one is the about VB image. Don't forget your text alternative, which is a description. And then the second picture. And that's the ball. And then I'll put alt equals ball photo. Now these don't have the drop shadow or anything on them yet. That's okay. So we've got our two images in there, and we've got to add the fig caption. And then turn that off. Okay, so interesting volleyball stuff. That's what it says. Interesting volleyball stuff. Let's run it. It's going to be hard to see on the small view, so I'm just going to go ahead and refresh here on the large view. All right. Oops. Looks like I have my ball inserted improperly, but otherwise this seems to be working. So we'll go back in here. Forgot my images slash. You know how that goes. Okay, now if we want to make this match, then we're going to create a class that we can apply to each of these images for that double border and that shadow. So let's go ahead and create that class. I'm going to call it WBORD. It's a class, so a period. And we're going to add a filter. Well, let's go ahead and add the drop shadow. I guess it doesn't really matter. Let's do the border. So it's going to be a thick, double, and then again that color that we've been using. And then to add a drop shadow filter, drop shadow. Now this is going to be just like text shadow. It's got the 3 numbers and then the color. So I'm going to use basically the exact same stuff I used before. 5 pixels, 5 pixels, 5 pixels, black. Okay. I think I got it all in there. All right, and then I must apply it to the images. So I'm going to come into each of these images. Class equals WBOD, WBoard. And you copy and paste that, but I'm too lazy, so I'm just going to type it again. All right, there we go. And let's see if that did it. I'm trying to type this fast, so not quite sure if I'm getting it all in there. There we go. Looks good. All right. So at this point, I think we've pretty much got it. Let's take a look at it. Got our pictures down there. Everything's looking good. Now, if you've hung on this long, I'll show you a couple of additional things. So here's this one, and then here's this one. So notice the top, this box up in here. If that bothers any of you, that's one of those things that really bothers me. It's not that it's a huge deal. It just bothers me sometimes. Well, basically, it's adding a margin around. It's not even around the header. It's around this H1. H1s automatically have a margin around them. So what I'm going to do is kind of cheat the system here. I'm going to add padding in the header, basically so I get this bottom part off of here. See how that is? And so I'm just going to come up here into my styles and put this up here with all these. And I'm going to give my header just some padding. I think like 20 pixels or something. And then notice that automatically collapses that margin that's built in. If you add some padding, then it ignores that built-in margin that goes with that heading. See, isn't that better? And you could do the same thing down here with your footer if you added some padding to your footer. I did not in the example, but you could totally do that too. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So how did you do? I hope you did well. Just know that it's important to have all of these items at your disposal on your pink sheet. If you are not using your pink sheet and you're just trying to go off memory, I wouldn't recommend doing that. We have a lot of stuff to try to remember at this point. So definitely be sure that you're taking those shortcuts and that you've got everything written down. And I hope that me walking you through this helps.